Yes, hello again, welcome back to Classic Dirt Bike TV, and it's been quite a busy few weeks for the channel, been out and about covering some of those live events, but I do hope you enjoyed all of the racing and of course the bikes that we brought you from those live events. Now, this next featured pair of bikes is a couple of machines that I came across during my paddock walkabout at the Taylor Trophy Helsington Scramble just a few weeks back, but unfortunately I was unable to fit these two machines into that paddock walkabout video, but we're going to put that right now by having a quick look around. So let's get down to business and take a look at these lovely pair of 1978 HL 500 Yamaha four-stroke thumpers. Now, to begin with, I don't actually know too much about these two bikes here, because at the time I grabbed these few clips, the owner wasn't actually on site at the time, although he did make an appearance sometime later. And I do know that this bike here on the right was being offered up for sale on the day, although whether the owner actually got the bike sold, I don't know. But according to some of the paperwork and the information that I got from the day's race programme that was published on the day, the number 9 bike here that we're looking at the front belonged to or was being raced by Scott Watkinson, and the number 16 bike in the background was being ridden by Robert Shuttleworth. And it's said that both bikes were listed as almost identical machines from 1978, and they say that both of these bikes had period correct HL chassis, and of course were powered by that stonking XT 500 Yamaha four-stroke power plant. Now, both of the XT engines on both of these bikes had varying degrees of upgrades or tuning done to them, but as you can see, a pair of fantastic looking four-stroke thumpers. Now, these particular HLs are of course not one of the super rare bikes that were pioneered by 4-time world motocross champion Torsten Holman and 2 times world champion Sten London, when they both tried to make a competitive 4-stroke racer by simply modifying a Swedish Husqvarna frame to take the big XT 500 Yamaha 4-stroke motor, which of course they eventually titled the HL 500 Yamaha, or Hall and London 500. But during 1978 and 1979, Yamaha did produce a very limited run of these HLs, which I think only numbered around the few hundred. But to be fair, most of the HL Yamahas that you do come across these days are simply copies or replicas of Holman and London's original design, mainly because those original bikes are few and far between, and any that are still going around in circulation are usually tucked up safe and sound in private collections or in other types of motorcycle related museums. And this example here that we're taking a look at is another interpretation of what the original Holman and London HLs looked like back in 1978 or 79. But even this example here is yet another replica of the 79 bike with its alloy rear swing arm and Öhlins rear shocks. But as I remember, I think the original HLs did have a pair of Fox air shocks bolted onto them at the rear. But this bike here is still a very good rendition of the rare HL 500s, although as I said, this one again is yet another replica. So the owner of both of these bikes did tell me on the day that these were HL chassis, although as to who actually built the bikes, I was never told on the day. But these chassis, I think, could even be a pair of Profab frames, because Profab did build frame kits for these replica HL Yamahas, which usually consisted of the frame and swing arm, and then you just simply sourced all the other parts like the engine, the front and rear suspensions, and the wheels, and all the other parts that went into completing the bike, which is the main reason that you see so many variations of the stock HL bikes that were originally envisaged by the great Holman and London. And if you're lucky enough to have in your possession one of those super rare original bikes, then certainly hold on to it as an investment for the future. But nevertheless, these are still a very nice pair of HLs with, as you can see, their very own unique colour scheme with the blue chassis and that steel swing arm on the rear, which, as I said, was actually changed to a straight box section type alloy swing arm on the later 1979 HL bikes. Now, of course, the engine of choice for Holman and London's brand new racer was this old XT500 Yamaha four-stroke power plant, which in its stock standard form was just a pretty unexciting engine, which I think was said to put out around the 30 horsepower mark when it was still bolted into the old XT500 Yamaha enduro bike. But when H and L got their hands on it and tuned it with things like bigger valves and exotic high lift cams, and did other kind of upgrades on the engines, the once dull and lame four-banger trail bike engine was then transformed into a fire-breathing and highly competitive four-stroke motocross power plant that now reputed to pump out over the 50 horsepower, which was certainly good enough to take on any of the big bore two-strokers of its day. Now, I also remember the owner of both of these bikes telling me that these XT500s have also had the usual upgrades with things like bigger titanium valves and a megacycle cam and a few other exotic tuning bits and pieces fitted them to increase the power and the motor's performance. And not only was this new 500 now more powerful than its standard trim, it was pretty much bulletproof when it came to engine reliability. And you can also see that on this engine here we have that big megaphone type tailpipe, which I'm pretty sure sounds absolutely fantastic when that big four-stroke Yamaha single gets fired into life. And you can see here just how it passes around the outside of the bike's alloy airbox. And this number 9 bike here also looks like it's fitted with what looks like a pair of YSS classic rear twin shocks. But there's no question that when you look around both of these machines, you can see that they have been very well put together. And the SM Pro Platinum Gold anodized alloy wheels are, of course, brand new items, but they're still using the old Yamaha drum brakes and hubs that the original HLs did have back in the day. And this is the other bike that you can see. It also has those top quality Swedish Olin gas and oil piggyback shocks, which the 1979 models I think did have as their rear suspensions in that year. But as you'd expect, a lot of the parts that went into building the original HLs were just raided from Yamaha's parts bins, and these slimline fuel tanks were certainly a bit of a trademark on the HLs, and these fuel tanks were normally borrowed from the much smaller YZ two-stroke motocrossers. And again, here we have both of the seats on these bikes are personalised to suit the owner's own taste and colour scheme of the bikes. And I must say that when you see all of the different parts of these bikes coming together in this kind of blue and yellow theme, it certainly does make them very unique and bespoke. Although, as I've just mentioned, I really didn't have much time to get any details on both of these bikes because these two machines here were about the last two bikes that I filmed during my paddock walkabout on the day, because the track action was only about 10 minutes from starting, so I never really had much time to hang around. But you can see that there's quite a lot of good quality parts bolted onto each of these bikes, where here we've got a nice pair of Renthal bars, and of course that gold anodized alloy gasser throttle there from Foxy Race Products, who I think normally make these type of items for speedway or grass track bikes. And also on the left hand side there, the all important decompressor lever, and of course that red engine kill switch as well. So as we move on to the front forks on both bikes, which are again Yamaha suspension units, but I'm not sure that these are the same as the ones that were bolted onto the original HLs, which as I remember I think came from the Yamaha YZ 400 two-strokers of the late 1970s, but I suspect that these front forks here will be borrowed from a much later Yamaha model, maybe a YZ 490 or similar machine. And as I previously mentioned, other than the very few original HLs that were built using the YZ 400 two-stroke front forks, some of the other replica bikes used all manner of front forks, because they were more or less just kit bikes that you built your own HL interpretation around the profab frame and swing arm. But this number 9 bike here, as I said, was being offered up for sale on the day, although unfortunately I never actually got the owner's contact details so that you could get in touch if you were maybe interested. But if you're into your four-stroke thumpers, what a great addition this bike would make to your Yamaha four-stroke collection. But both of these superb looking bikes, the number 16 machine of Robert Shuttleworth's and the number 9 bike there of Scott Watkinson's, were both being raced in the Twin Shock Open, aged 45 years and under class. That's of course the rider's age and not of course the age of the bike. And I certainly do remember seeing Scott racing around the track on this number 9 HL, but it was an extremely muddy track at Helsington, so I'm glad that I managed to get these few clips while the bikes were nice and clean, because it wasn't too long before these very nice pristine racers were almost unrecognisable after their first trip around the track. But for me, personally speaking, original or not, these are still a very nice pair of four-stroke thumpers, and as I said, yet another kind of take on the many different concoctions of HLs that you see these days. And it would have been quite good to compare these two to a fully original HL 500 that was built back in 78 or 79, but as yet I must say I've never actually come across one, because it's so few of those original bikes were actually made. But I must say a very big well done to whoever put these bikes together, because they've done a fantastic job. And of course the icing on these particular HL cakes is that not only are they fantastic to look at, they're also proper usable race bikes as well. Right, okay, so coming up next here on Classic Dirt Bike TV, we're going to check out this superb collection of BAC Victors belonging to Ian Ridley, and these nice looking specimens are just a few of the classics that Ian has lying around his workshop. So make sure that you subscribe or at least return to CDB TV to take a look at this trio of British built classics. But for the time being, thanks again for watching, and from all of us here in Scotland, it's goodbye for now.